Okay, we are holding here in Chelek Aleph Perek Dalid, getting close to finishing this Chelek with a Perek titled Ovdei Hashem. So we were talking. This is in the Chelek Aleph. The general theme of this whole section is Malchus, and the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how that manifests in the Malchus that's portrayed on Shabbos. Last week we discussed a little side point about Malchus Beis David and Malchus Yosef, and now we're back to talk about another aspect of Malchus within the realm of what we described before as Koilel, and the example of Shulchan that we've given a number of times, which is the basis of a lot of what he's saying. And now we're going to be looking at it from the opposite perspective a little bit. We're going to be looking at it from Malchus from the perspective of the Eved, or the citizen. As a Melech. How do we treat the Melech? What is our Chelek? So, starting off over here, it comes back to the marshal of the Shulchan that he described before. And he starts off by saying, or Pinkin starts off by saying, that once you have that table, so nobody looks at the table as pieces anymore. You don't look at a table. Somebody would point to you a table and you'd ask them, what is that? You'd say, it's a table. You wouldn't say, well, it's a few pieces of wood put together, 5 pieces of wood, maybe more than 5 pieces of wood put together, and there's the skinny part. Nobody's going to say that. They're going to say, this is a table, unless they don't know what a table is, unless they've never seen a table before in their lives. The table now takes on a new status. So this is what he says here at the end of the first paragraph here on page Lamed Gimel. Lo yitan leiv l'shem eitzim. People won't look at it just as a piece of wood. El l'shem shulchan bavad. It's only looked at as a table. V'zeh mamish kibechinas av avdus. That's what it means, avdus. Shekol metzius aprat botlo lemusag nale yoiser. That all the individuality, each individual piece is bottle. It is no longer seen on its own. Rather, it is a part now of the bigger idea. It doesn't exist almost anymore. Of course, the legs exist. Of course, it's still a piece of wood. Of course, you could look at it that way. But nobody does. Because the pieces are totally integrated with the whole, that now the entire thing has a new name. The names of the individual pieces are bottled. They no longer exist. And that's what it means, Avdus. The Eved doesn't exist anymore. It is just, he's part of the greater whole, the greater mamlacha, the kingdom. Your name is now being part of the kingdom. It's very interesting. I heard a sikha today from our mashgiach, Rav Weinman, and he quoted from Nosson Tzvi Finkel, a very beautiful idea on the parsha this week. And he said, when Klal Yisrael were avodim in Mitzrayim, that was a very difficult, very hard, difficult tekufa, very challenging and sad tekufa for Klal Yisrael. Why did Hashem want that? Why did Hashem want Klal Yisrael to go through that? It was so terrible. We're going to see later on how HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually undid it to a certain degree. He undid the Abdus. Later on in Shabbos Malchus, he talks about this. Hashem will get to it. But he said a beautiful idea, that the Abdus in Mitzrayim taught Klal Yisrael what it meant to be an Eved. And the Jewish people have to know what it means to be Avodim. You have to know, because you can only be an Eved Hashem if you know what it means to be an Eved. And what does it mean to be an Eved? An Eved, he doesn't have his own ratzon. His only job is to do what his master says. That's it. He doesn't have his own desires. He can't have his own desires. They're meaningless. It's only what his master wants. So if that becomes ingrained into Klal Yisrael, so then they can become Avdei Hashem. Then we can become that. The only thing that matters to me is the Ratzon Hashem, and that's really what Moshe Rabbeinu was. What was Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest person ever to live? What was he? Anam Mikol Adam. Totally the humblest person ever to live. Why? Because all I am is a Eved Hashem. That's it. I'm totally bottled to whatever the Ratzon Hashem is. The greatest person to ever live, and he views himself as an Eved. That's the highest level. To be an Eved. I'm totally bottled to only to the Ratzon Hashem. That's the level that everybody should be trying to get. What? Because in this week's parsha, in the last few weeks, Shemois, Va'era, this is where Klal Yisrael is in the Shibud, the very beginning of this week's parsha. Klal Yisrael had such hard, even worse than regular. At the end of last week's parsha, coming into this week's parsha, it says Klal Yisrael couldn't even listen to the Besura Toiva of Moshe Rabbeinu that we're going to have a Geula. They couldn't even listen. It was so terrible. It was so difficult. But that was also that we can understand what it means to be an Eved. To totally be mevatel ourselves to the Ratzon of our Master. That's Hashem. That's what it means. What it means to be a true Eved Hashem is to totally be mevatel ourselves, like the pieces of wood are mevatel themselves to the table as a whole. We don't look at pieces of wood anymore. We see it only as the greater whole. And this is what he explains here in the second paragraph. That Abdus means you mevatel yourself to the Master, and you become part of that greater idea. Here I'm in the middle of the second paragraph. It's not just that you're bottled and you don't exist. Now you become like a melech. If you connect yourself to the Malchus, you become like a melech. Like we just said, it's the highest level that a person can reach. To be called Eved Hashem. Hashem in his Torah calls Moshe Rabbeinu. When he was speaking to Aaron and Moshe about the Lashon Hara that they spoke about Moshe, why do you talk about Moshe like this? He's my Eved. Avdi Moshe. How can you talk about Moshe like that? It's the highest level. Your own individuality is gone. You are totally connected to the Malchus. That's why you're part of it. So it's not just I'm totally mevatel, I have no individuality, but now I'm actually part of the Malchus. This is a very difficult thing to understand in our modern era where everybody has to be an individual, everybody has to have their own individuality. How can I be mevatel myself? Chas v'sholom. I am myself. And so you're limiting yourself when you do that. You have a much greater purpose. You can be connected to the highest things. But it means you have to remove yourself a little bit. That's what we described also the mirror. The mirror has to be completely clean. It can't have any of itself. And then it can reflect purely what's given to it. And therefore it can be the conduit by which the entire picture can be seen. That's why we have to be mevatel ourselves, make ourselves low in our service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that is the purpose of the king. The purpose of the king also, now looking at it from the opposite perspective, the king's purpose is not to take advantage of the avodim for his own personal gain. When we're looking at ourselves, we are being mevatel ourselves to the king, and therefore we become part of the king. The king is not just taking everything in order to take advantage of everybody else. Yes, in the history of the world, there have been kings who have done things like that, and those kings have not necessarily been very popular, and many of them have been disposed of because of their selfishness. But a true king raises the nation. This is what he says here in the third paragraph. He's supposed to take everything in order to raise everything up. He gives the entire essence, like we described a couple weeks ago, that you become right. That you become a citizen based on the kingdom. You are now an American based on the American people, on the American government. You are now a Russian based on the new Russian Tsar, Mr. Putin. Yeah, you are. It is making the nation into something. You're no longer individuals. That's the purpose of the king. The purpose of the king, yes, you all have to be mevatel to me. But by me doing that, I'm lifting you up. I'm making you a new status. That's what he said. You become part of Malchus. That is the best example of that is Moshe Rabbeinu, like we said before. The true Eved becomes like a melech. He's connected to the Malchus. The one who's connected to the Malchus the most, he's the one who's the closest to the Melech. The more his Mavatim of, the truer the Eved he is, the more he's connected to the king. The more he becomes part of the Malchus. So when we look at a simple example like a table, so all four legs become part of the table. But on the next page, he actually describes, I'm going to skip a little bit over here. He actually describes that what if you don't want to become part of it? What if you don't want to become part of it? What if you're an Eved and I still want to have my individuality?
That's not being an Eved.
Oh, that's right. You're not really being an Eved. You know what that's like? In the mashal of the Shulchan. That's like a table leg who decides that, I want to be different than everybody else. Right? So then all of a sudden you have a pogum table. Right? One table leg decides, no, I'm not going to be a different color. I'm going to be crooked. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. All of a sudden, like you ruin the whole table because you need it. When everybody comes together, and we all are ma'achid to make that new entity. That's when you see, wow, that's the beauty of it. Otherwise, it becomes pogum. An Eved who doesn't want to be an Eved, so he's far away. He doesn't really become part of the Malchus. The purpose, like we said, the purpose of the Melech is not for himself, it's to lift everybody else. That's the reason why the Melech can't be moichel on his kavod. See, the sugya is in Kiddushin of whether a parent can be moichel on his kavod, can a Rebbe be moichel on his kavod, can a Nasi be moichel on his kavod. But according to the Gemara, at the end of the Gemara, a Melech certainly cannot be moichel on his kavod. Because his kavod is not just his kavod, it's a kavod that comes from the whole nation. And he has a responsibility over the entire nation. Therefore, he can't be moichel on his kavod. So we have these two parts. We have the Melech part. The Melech is the one who brings it together. The pieces aren't necessarily him even, but the Melech is the one who connects everything together. And then you have the Avodim. The Avodim who want to be put together. They don't want to be individuals. They want to be part of the greater whole so they can become part of the Malchus. And here at the end of this section, right before Oiz Beis, the last paragraph, he brings the mashal to the nimshal. Kain mamish ha-Yehudi b'ha'avodah. So that's what is a Jew in his avodas Hashem. Ad kamashu mevatel atzmo l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'toraso. If a Jew is mevatel himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to his Torah, kol ma'asav heima l'shem shamayim. Then everything he's doing is for Hashem. Hu atzmo yoser Yehudi. He's more of a Jew. Because that's what we discussed. A Yehudi is a Hashem, a small Hashem. It's Hashem's representative in this world. So the more I'm doing the Ratzon Hashem, the more I am that representative of Hashem. V'nikra Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what a Jew is. V'shamanu karasa b'shemecha. Our name is called based on your name. V'shimcha hagodol v'akadosh aleinu karata. Your great name is on us. When people hate Jews, that's what it is. They hate Hashem. The Soinim of Klal Yisrael are really the Soinim of Hashem, because that's what the Jewish people are. The Jewish people are the representatives of Hashem in this world. We are Hashem's citizens, Hashem's nation. Like we just discussed before, Moshe Rabbeinu was a Ish Eloikim, a godly man, because he was so connected to Hashem. Because he was doing Ratzon Hashem, he was a pure Eved. Somebody doesn't want to, I don't want to just be a Jew. I want to be a Renaissance man. I want to be worldly. I want to know everything. I want to, Hare zu belita muchorez mikalkeletz is called Surah Sayudi. This ruins the surah of a Jew. You're supposed to be, your whole essence, every Jew's whole essence, and everything they do should be serving Hashem. I'm serving Hashem, but these things I'm doing for myself. Well, then you're not a real Eved. You're like a Chatzi Eved, yeah? You're a Chatzi Eved, that's why you are for Hashem. Yeah, Hashem, I give you your time, and you give me my time.
And if you don't have Hashem, automatically at the power.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. It's a very interesting halacha. A very interesting halacha that I think a lot of people misunderstand. The halacha is that on Yom Tif, there's a din of chati l'Hashem, chati lachem. We pass like Shitas Rabbi Yeshua in the Gemara in the Gemara in Beitza, that on Yom Tif you have to spend half the day what's called chati l'Hashem, doing Hashem's work, v'chati lachem, and half the day is for you. So some people might make the mistake and say, "Oh, you see, it says over here that half the day I can do what I want. I can do whatever I want. And half the day I have to do Hashem, what Hashem wants. So what's the half the day I'm doing Hashem? I have to daven, I have to learn. That's the half of Hashem, right? And then the other half is me. So I can eat, I can drink, I can go do whatever I want, right? So that's my part. I get to choose that part. So I had a kasha. You know my kasha? What's the din in the following case? Let's say I'm a big masmid, and I love learning. And it's mamish the most geschmack thing in the world. It's so much tastier than meat, than steak. A black Gemara is the most geschmack thing in the world, right? And you know what? I have a great idea. When it comes to Yom Tif, I want to spend the whole day in the Beis Medrash. I don't want to eat. I don't want to eat at all. I just want to sit and learn. Hashem, you have your chati l'Hashem. The chati lachem I get to choose. And I'm choosing to sit and stay in the Beis Medrash all day. Is that okay? Is that mutter? Are you allowed to do that? The Gemara in Beitza brings a story. The Gemara in Beitza brings a story that there were people learning in the Beis Medrash. When it got to halfway through the day, they said, "Get out. You have to go. You have to leave. Go eat now. Get out of Beis Medrash." How can you do that? This is my lachat lachem. I get to choose. Right? Right? That's the Gemara in Pesachim. You don't get to choose. Both chati l'Hashem and chati lechem are both for Hashem. You don't get to choose. It's just two different ways of serving Hashem. You serve Hashem by davening and learning, and you serve Hashem by eating and sleeping. Yeah, that's also part of serving Hashem. You can't decide, no, I'm not going to eat. You can't decide that. But I just want to sit and learn. You can't. You know who holds that you can do that? Rebbe Lezer, that's right. You know why he holds that? Because Rebbe Lezer holds Kula Hashem or Kula Lachem. You have the choice to decide either the entire day in Ruchnius or the entire day in Gashmius. That's your choice. You want to serve Hashem through Ruchnius, whole day in Ruchnius. Serve Hashem in Gashmius, whole day in Gashmius. That you can choose.
I mean, even if you have to daven, you have to...
Right. But you don't have to sit and learn. Yeah. You have to all day just sit and enjoy your God. Serve Hashem that way. Rebbe Lezer holds you can sit and learn all day, no problem. But we're machmir.
But he even holds that you need to have a quick food, like 50 minutes.
Only, we're not going to go through the whole sugya now.
And then on Shavuos.
On Shavuos for sure, because the Shavuos, the Gemara says every half.
Said you need 14 sudas in the sukkah.
Yeah, but later on he goes back and he in the Gemara and Sukkah, Rebbe Lezer goes back on that, and he says the Ma'aser Rebbe Lezer holds that if a person wants to, he doesn't have to. He can just sit and learn all day. But we don't paskin like Rebbe Lezer. We paskin like Rebbe Yeshua, and you have to, because serving Hashem also means by eating and drinking. It's not I get to choose. I'm an Eved Hashem. I'm doing what Hashem says. Hashem says to eat. You know why Hashem wants me to eat? Because He wants me to eat. He wants me to enjoy the Gashmias in Olam Hazeh on His great Yom Tiv day. On the days that He He's decided Shabbos is a great day, I want you to sit and eat. You know why? Because this is my great day, and that's what I want from you. Wouldn't it be better if I sat and learning Yishmak HaToysvus? Yeah. Right now you're supposed to eat. That's also serving Hashem. So you don't have a choice. You have to have your Shalosh Sudot on Shabbos. You have to make Kiddush. You have to have your Challah. You don't have a choice. That's also part of serving Hashem. So even though it looks like, it's Gashmi, it's for me, no, that's all part of serving Hashem. And that's what it means to be an Eved. I don't make my own cheshbonos. I do what Hashem says. I do what the Melech says. That's what I do. Ha'avdus hi hitbatlus lemidas kol. Avdus means I'm totally mevatel to everything else. I'm I'm part of everybody else. Hamalchus. That's what it means. I'm being mavatal myself to the Melech. But I totally give myself over. Everything is from Hashem. Now starting Oiz Beis. This is the secret of doing mitzvahs, of doing all mitzvahs. To do the will of Hashem. And totally, you want to do some things? No, I'm being mavatal myself. Whatever Hashem wants. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who puts all the pieces of life together for a person. As much as a person is mavatal himself to the Ratan Hashem, then he becomes part of the Melech too, because he becomes part of the greater Malchus. And that's why he has a Shem Hashem. He's called an Eved Hashem. The Eved Melech. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the ultimate, the greatest person to ever live, and was also called a Melech. When we do mitzvahs, the mitzvahs shows that we're being mavatal ourselves to Hashem. We're showing, Hashem, you have a ratzon, we're going to do it. We're going to do whatever you want. We only do what Hashem wants. On Shabbos, what do? We stop all of our own work. All of our own things, even the things we need for oichel nefesh, even the things we need to eat, we're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Every single move on Shabbos goes based on what Hashem says. We're not going to go through the ideas behind the 39 halachos. Maybe later on in the Sefer he discusses it. But there are so many halachos on Shabbos. Shabbos is so complicated. It's probably the single mitzvah, or maybe there are numerous mitzvahs in Shabbos, but the single idea in the Torah that has the most things related to it. Or maybe Karbonos as a whole is bigger than that. But Shabbos has so many halachas. You open up the regular Mishnah Brura Chele Gimel, and it's incredible. Then you open up the Dirshu Mishnah Brura, and it's endless. It's endless. The pratim of all the things that we're supposed to do and not do on Shabbos. That means every step of Shabbos, Lamoshel is like a servant in the king's palace. You have to dress a certain way, you have to walk a certain way, you have to look a certain way. I heard a Gavaldic story. I think it was Kaiser Wilhelm, who was I don't know, Wilhelm the first, second, from the Holy Roman Empire, maybe it was called the German Empire at the time, came to visit Eretz Yisrael. He was on a trip here in Eretz Yisrael, and he came to Yerushalayim. And he was going to meet with the leaders of the community, and I don't remember who the Rav was. I think it could have been him. He was the Rav of the community at the time, but there was a layman. I don't remember the exact names. But Lamaisa, there was the head of the Rosh Kahal, who was a lay leader, a person who was not a Rav, but a leader of the layman of that community. And he was, the Rosh Kahal is considered to be the most chashuv person in the Kehillah besides the Rav. So he was going to be the one to lead and show the Kaiser around Yerushalayim. And when the Rav, again, I don't know if I remember it was Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld or somebody else, they said to him, I don't think it's kedai for you to do this. It's not a good idea. Have somebody else do it. I don't think it's a good idea for you to do it. Insulting. I'm the Rosh Kahal. I'm not going to do this. And he didn't listen to the Rav. To make a long story short, exactly how this happened, Lamaisa, he insulted the Kaiser a few times. A few too many. Maybe it was like 2. And he was thrown in jail because of it. I don't know what happened in the end, and they asked the Rav, how did you know that he...
I thought you looked at the one down the apartment.
No, I'm probably a different story. Lamaisa, they asked the Rav, how did you know that this was not shaykh? So he said, I know this man. I know he doesn't understand what Malchus is. He doesn't understand what it means to be around a king. You don't correct a king, ever. If a king says something, you say, of course, yes. Anything the king wants, he gets. You start telling the king, no, 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 this is what's going to happen. When we are on Shabbos and we're doing every single thing, we have to be so careful how you tie your shoelaces, how you pick out food from your plate. Every little thing, you wash your hands, be careful if it's outside, it's going to fall on the grass. There are so many halachos, so many little things, that it's so easy. You can read the Hakdama to the Chavetz Chaim and Chelek Gimel about how the pratim in Shabbos. A person has to be so careful. Why? Because you're in the king's house. Everything has to be done perfectly. Everything has to be done just right. That's what it means. You're an Eved in the king's house. You have to do everything. That's what Shabbos is. Shabbos is the Shekhinah is here. So we have to be so careful. I can't do any of my own things, even for my own food. No. Everything is for the king. He brings over here a very interesting machlokes between the Rambam and the Ramban about tefillah. And the Rambam held that a person has a chiyuv to daven at least once a day. And the Ramban questions this, like, where did you come up with that from? Where is okay? It's a Yidua machlokes between them. But Rapinkus over here says it could very well be that the reason why the Rambam said this, the Rambam says it, that it's once a day, is because there's something called the Gilgul Achayim, meaning there are things that happen that constantly repeat itself, like a day, sunrise, sunset, a new day, every day, and there's this circular nature to life. So if there's a chiyuv to daven, it makes sense that every time we start again, there's a new chiyuv. Every time. It's the same thing with Shabbos. Every time, Shabbos is part of this Gilgul, this circular part of life that every week there comes a Shabbos. Every week it becomes part of your avdus. When a person is an Eved, so he has certain jobs to do. Those jobs aren't a new job here and a new job there every time. No. You're in charge of X. X comes up this often. So you're going to be in charge every time it comes up. So you're the butler. You're the Saram Mashkim. That means every time we need it, you're the one who has to do it. So that's what Shabbos is. Shabbos is the Shekhinah's coming. So we need to make sure that we are in the mode, in the rhythm, that Shabbos comes, we're doing our avdus. We're stopping, we're not doing anything else. That's it. That's what Shabbos is. Because Shabbos shows that we're completely bottled to Hashem. It is the mitzvah that shows the greatest hitbatlus to Hashem. That we stop everything more than any other mitzvah. We are totally bottled to Hashem. Every one of these lamatet malachos, which is part of what a normal life is, we have to stop. We're not worried about our own selves. We're totally of the Hashem. And then the last paragraph over here, he actually brings a very interesting idea. He says there is one mitzvah that's doimeh to Shabbos, and that's Talmud Torah. V'yesh no oid mitzvah achas sheyesh ba avdus lo pochos mishabbos kodesh. There's one mitzvah that is on the same level of hitbatlut to Hashem, like Shabbos, and that's learning Torah. Limud Torah shval peh. V'kiyadua lechol talmid chacham aroita liknois et Torah. Everybody knows, any Talmud Chacham who knows, do you know what it means to be real, become a Talmud Chacham? To really be kohen Torah? You have to totally give yourself over to Torah. Somebody you have to kill yourself over Torah. That's how you're kohen Torah. You have to totally give yourself over to Limud Torah. Total hitbatlus in order to be kohen Torah. So he says here at the very end of the parak, and we'll finish up over here. Hagadlus b'Torah niknis k'fi midas ha'avdus. You become a gadol in Torah by being mavata yourself, by becoming an Eved Hashem. Nifla divrei Chazal b'Zohar HaKodesh. How amazing is the words of Chazal from the Zohar. Shetalmid Chacham hu bebechinas Shabbos. Talmid Chacham is like Shabbos. Shebelimud HaTorah yesh et ha'avdus shel Shabbos mamish. It's the same idea. On Shabbos, we're totally mavatal everything, our own ratzon, and we only do ratzon Hashem. And that's what a Talmid Chacham does too. He's totally mavatal himself, and he's totally shakua only in Limud Torah. Which is why also we can say Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest Eved Hashem. He was the one who brought Torah to Klal Yisrael. He was totally mevatel himself, 40 days and 40 nights without eating, without drinking, without doing anything except for being makabel the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's it. For 40 days and 40 nights, there was no person. It was all he was just to be makabel the Torah. Complete battlus. This is what every Jew does on Shabbos. So even a person is not necessarily gonna be learning 18 hours a day, but on Shabbos we can still do that. On Shabbos we can have our complete hitbatlus to Hashem, and that's for every Yid. Some people have a hard time here. Learning is difficult. I don't have time. I make parnasa, but lamaisi you still have Shabbos. Shabbos can give us that complete hitbatlus, and that's when we're calling you're a Jew. A Jew is an Eved Hashem. Eved Hashem, we shall be zeicher.